From the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson.com, this is the Wildcast.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Wildcast podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review the Wildcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And also don't forget to download the Wildcaster app for free off the App Store and Google Play. Justin Spears in the Arizona Daily Star studios with Michael Lev and Ryan Finley. It's our wrap-up podcast, guys, for the college football season.
I'm probably the only person in the room here who says, man, that went by fast.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying because we were, in the trenches, right, as it were, but it did kind of feel fast. And it felt like for a second there that it could have gone on a little longer.
Yeah.
Arizona was that close to securing a bowl bid, which would have really been something in year two under Jedd Fisch.
Yeah, you play better against Cal or against Washington State. And we're talking today about the Gildan, New Mexico Bowl or something along those lines.
The Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl?
Oh, yeah. Actually, yes.
But Arizona goes into the offseason still feeling pretty good about themselves, I would say. 5-7, 38-35 win over the Arizona State Sun Devils, finally getting the Territorial Cup back in Tucson for the first time since 2016. And if you ask a lot of Arizona fans, they'd be the first ones to tell you, it doesn't matter if you go to a bowl game or not, beat ASU, and we'll feel pretty good about the football team going into the offseason. And a year after going 1-11, they win 5 games. They have a signature win on the road against UCLA, and then they beat ASU to end the season. And they did it with a lot of young players, and a lot of these players are all coming back next season. I know Arizona has some holes, and we'll talk about some things that they need to patch up, whether it's through the transfer portal or junior college guys or freshmen that they have committed for 2023. But Arizona, they have a pretty good idea of what they can do in 2023.
I think the question is, can you improve the defense heading into next year as much as you were able to improve the offense this year? They made a huge leap offensively. I mean, they became the most explosive offense in the country in terms of 20-plus yard plays on a percentage basis, which is really something. They upped their points per game by almost 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Obviously upgraded at quarterback, overhauled the wide receiving core. So you kind of feel like they're still going to be good offensively, even if they lose, Jordan Morgan, Jacob Cowing, Michael Wiley, some of these guys who conceivably could enter the draft. They still got Jaden Delora coming back. You still got T-Mac. You still got Dorian Singer, Tanner McLaughlin, several starters on the offensive line. They'll be good offensively. How much better can they get on defense in 1 year to go from 5 wins to, say, 7 wins?
Right.
Yeah.
Has Jedd said throughout the year whether the sort of improve on offense first strategy was purposeful? Or is it just that the head coach is an offensive-minded guy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that they were so bad offensively in year one. That's one factor. And another factor is just kind of easier to get skill position players than it is to get linemen. So you can probably engineer a quick fix faster on that side of the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and Justin and I had talked about this on the radio the other day, I think that this year's team was super fun to watch. And maybe it becomes easier to attract defensive players when you have an offense that's clicking, if that makes sense. Hey, now all we need is you guys. You guys are the missing pieces, right? I don't know. It's hard to imagine, had we said in August, this offense would be fun as heck to watch. They'd beat UCLA and ASU. They'd finish with 5 wins. We'd all take that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they exceeded every reasonable expectation this year, even defensively. I mean, I think towards the end of the season, Arizona's defense really did tighten up a little bit. And I think that we see some young players there that can really be a part of the core of Arizona's next really good team.
I love the stat that Jedd threw out there. They had 5 takeaways in the last game of the season. They had 6 the entirety of the 2021 season. To your point about, could we have imagined this happening? So I'm working on these this review series, offense, defense, and special teams, and I'm using last year's format that I came up with. And I was looking back at last year at 6 key returnees that I listed for the offense. Okay, you ready for this?
Okay.
Will Plummer, Jordan McLeod, Dorian Singer, Alex Lyons, Stevie Rocker, and Josh Baker. Only two of those guys played
Josh Baker
down.
and Dorian
Josh
Singer.
Baker and Dorian Singer. I mean, Alex Lyons did play at the beginning of the season. He decided to transfer when he lost playing time. Stevie Rocker did not play. The two quarterbacks didn't play. Jordan McLeod also transferred in mid-season. So that shows you right there just how dramatic the transformation was. Maybe also some bad prognosticating on my part.
But Jed also, said multiple times this year, because he was asked, why are you guys giving up so many points? Because remember, at the start of Pac-12 play, it was like 49, 49, 45. It's like, why are you guys giving up so many points? And he said, well, one, the defense is struggling. Like, that's no secret. But two, this is just a product of college football. A lot of teams, a lot of the best offenses in games are putting up a lot of points, no matter who they're facing. So I think Jed Fish kind of recognized what he needed to do to kind of set up 2023, and that's in 2022, get the skill players on offense to really make you electric.
The one game that still doesn't make any sense is the Cal game.
Yeah.
Right? Look, the other games, you went up against Michael Penix. You went up against Bo Nix. You went up against Caleb Williams. I mean, these guys are superstar quarterbacks this year, guys who some of them might end up in New York. One of them might win the Heisman Trophy. These are, I'm sure Caleb Williams and Michael Penix will be the All-Pac-12 quarterbacks. The Cal game. I mean, their offense was so bad in every other game that they fired their offensive coordinator and offensive line coach during the season.
Yeah.
That's the one that stands out. And I said it at the time, too. This is the one that the Wildcats are going to live to regret.
Yeah. Cal scored 49 points that day. They didn't score more than 28 the rest of the year in a game. And that was against UCLA on Saturday. So they went 2 full months without sniffing anything close to that. To me, I think it's interesting that, with about 2 or 3 weeks left, Jed Fish appeared to give the young guys a chance defensively, right? You saw some personnel decisions that were made. Ephesians Prysock started playing more. Jacob Manu really became a regular out there. And this defense got better. I mean, to me, that's what's so surprising, is they sort of went youth movement towards the end and actually got a better result. Where I think ordinarily when you go youth movement towards the end of a season, it's about getting your freshmen's feet wet so that the next year they're ready to go. And usually you suffer in the short term. Again, starting with the UCLA game, there was, the defense was just so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some big playability there. You saw, obviously, they were forcing turnovers towards the end of the season. And it starts with the little guy in the middle, Jacob Manu.
Yeah.
We laughed about this probably 6 weeks ago. That Arizona's defense was so bad that they were playing freshmen, and not only freshmen, but like 5'8" freshmen.
Yeah.
Right. And as it turns out, he's been, I think, one of the big revelations defensively. I'm not going to doubt that guy ever again.
Well, I think you also have to tip your cap to Johnny Nansen for kind of recognizing, okay, here's what I got. People keep getting on me about not adding pressure. We're not getting to the quarterback. We're not pressuring the quarterback. Mm-hmm. So what can I do to do that? Mm-hmm. All right, let's get all these kind of skill players, all these long DBs out there. They started to put more defensive backs, and he kind of got crafty with deploying defensive backs, getting to the quarterback, and they were getting pressure in unique ways.
Sure.
And for a first-year defensive coordinator to make that kind of decision at that point in the season, which is very critical, because remember, Arizona fighting for a bowl berth, right? Trying to really make a splash in year 2. For him to make a change like that, I think it bodes well for him in his career at Arizona.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. If you take away 2 of the turnovers at the end of the ASU game, Trenton Bourguet looks like Joe Montana, and maybe ASU wins that game, right? This defense wasn't good by the end of the year, but they were better and they were more opportunistic. Yeah. And so much, and Lev, you can speak to this, so much about defense is about separating the ball, is about making big plays on 3rd and short or 4th and short or whatever that is. Maybe it's just anecdotal here, but I thought Arizona made more big plays on defense in the last month of the season than they did in their first 8 or 9 games combined.
Yeah. Well, the big plays, they did it in North Dakota State because they played bad against North Dakota State.
They absolutely
did. And late in that 4th quarter, they dug deep, made plays. UCLA. Zach Charbonnet running like a madman. Sure, Chip Kelly went away from the run there, so you can blame a little bit on Chip Kelly, but defense made plays late in that game.
Yeah, no, they made – you're right. I mean, Arizona – we joked at the time, had Arizona held a team back-to-back possessions scoreless all year, right? Yeah. But they did there at the end. UCLA had 2 big possessions at the end. And then you look at the ASU game. Forcing 2 turnovers while ASU is driving late in the game. It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Couple points. One, I always say that it's hard to unlearn. It's kind of easier for new guys, I think, when there's a new system to just come in and this is all they know. Whereas, like Jalen Harris, for example, who had a great game. His last game was maybe the best game of his career here. I mean, he's had how many defensive coordinators, how many position coaches? And he always says it's an asset, it's great, I learned so much, but like it's a lot of different philosophies and different voices in your head. Whereas Russell Davis and Sterling Lane and Fezian Pryzak and Decario Davis, they've had one defensive coordinator. Yeah. They've had one position coach. Mm-hmm. So I think it's easier. Number two, regarding Jacob Manu, okay? According to PFF, he had the second most pressures on the team this year, 21 pressures.
Wow.
Okay. Hunter Echols had 30. Now, where it really stands out, if you look at the pass rush snaps, Hunter Echols had 30 pressures in 264 pass rush snaps. That's 11.4%. Mm-hmm. Jacob Manu had 21 pressures in only 84 pass rush snaps. That's 25%.
That's crazy.
I mean, more than double the rate.
Right. So we're clear. This is not just that they were blitzing more. It was that he was able to get there more. He's
slithery. Mm-hmm. Like he just has, I mean, Johnny Nansen has called it the knack, right, for getting to the ball. And I think he just like, we've talked about how he's undersized, and I think that works to his benefit as a pass rusher. He can just go in between people, almost like a running back, and he has been able to affect the quarterback, and that's just such a huge thing. We saw it right there at the end of the game. 2 times those plays. Weirdly enough, no credit statistically on those plays.
That's a good point.
Because Jalen Harris got the sack, and I asked, like, can't you give a half sack to Manu? And you can't. Because the only way they allow a forced fumble is if it's a forced fumble on the sack, that guy gets credit for the full sack.
Gotcha.
So Manu gets nothing. And I don't think on the other one he does either, because he just hit the quarterback's arm and it was intercepted by Isaiah Taylor. I don't think that's a pass breakup. It's not a sack. It just goes down as a pressure or a hit. So like the official box score, it was nothing, but he is a legend.
I was gonna say it won't go down in the record books,
right?
People, real ones know.
Yeah, he'll be remembered forever for those plays.
All right, guys, let's give out some awards here. So we got offensive MVP, defensive MVP, best newcomer, and most improved player. Let's start off with the offensive side of the ball. So we brought up how Arizona very much improved this year compared to last year, and a big reason why is because they finally have a competent quarterback in Jayden de Laura, who finished the season with 3,685 yards. That's third all-time in single-season history for Arizona as a program, behind Nick Foles and Anu Solomon. So for Jayden de Laura to learn a new system, go under center, and endure a lot of growing pains, learning a new offense, for him to still finish that high in the record books for passing yards, I think really shows the kind of quarterback that he is. So Arizona isn't in position to contend for a bowl berth without Jayden de Laura, so he's my offensive MVP.
I'm also picking de Laura. You could make a case for Michael Wiley. The value he provided in terms of his consistency, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, scoring touchdowns. You could definitely make a case for Jordan Morgan. And if he had played the whole season and not gotten hurt, maybe it's a stronger case. Far and away, Arizona's best and most important offensive lineman. But it all kind of starts and ends with the quarterback position. Extremely productive, saved them from a lot of sacks. Like, I think their sack total would have been way higher if it hadn't been for Jayden de Laura. The one thing I'll say about him heading into next year is needs to be more consistent. A lot of ups and downs this year, and too many interceptions too. Yeah. He had the most interceptions in the league by a decent amount. So some areas to work on.
And something that, especially after last year, maybe we don't pay enough attention to rip off a Michael Lev phrase here. Availability is an ability. Durability, that's an ability too. He was both. He did not miss a single snap because of injury this year. He got hit a bunch. He got chased around a bunch. He answered the bell every time. And so I'm going to make it a clean sweep for Jayden de Laura here. I think he's their offensive MVP. We learned this year, again, how much better an offense can be when you have a reliable, dependable, healthy, competent quarterback. That is the biggest difference between Jedd Fisch's second year and Jedd Fisch's first year.
We'll talk about the quarterback situation later on, but it's kind of interesting how a year ago we were talking about Gunnar Cruz, Will Plummer, Jordan McLeod. These are the three quarterbacks. Now you got Jordan McLeod transferring to James Madison. Gunnar Cruz is probably going to come back as like a graduate assistant, maybe. We don't know what he's going to do. And Will Plummer will likely transfer too. And none of those guys got any playing time this year.
Well, and last year I think we said too, just wait till Noah Fafita gets here.
Yeah.
Right? And then, they pull off this the stunner of getting Jaden DeLora from Washington State. All of a sudden, Noah Fafita becomes kind of a developmental project, a guy who might be stepping in a year. It's huge. And again, maybe we should have expected it from a guy in Jedd Fisch who is, a quarterback's coach.
Yep.
Like we should have expected that Jedd Fisch was going to go get somebody, knowing full well that you probably need more than one talented quarterback to win.
All right, defensive most valuable player. Who are we going here with, guys? Because Wildcats finished 11th in the Pac-12 in rushing yards allowed. So the defense, while it improved in the second half of the season, when you look at the whole body of work, the Wildcats definitely need to improve in that category in the offseason. You know what? We just talked about him. I'm going to go with Jacob Manu.
That's a good pick.
The undersized linebacker, because he came in and really made an impact in that game against UCLA and obviously that game against ASU. Those are the two most important games of the season for the Arizona Wildcats, and he made plays in the second half in both. So give me Jacob Manu as the defensive MVP for the Arizona Wildcats, which is crazy to think because, once again, when the Anaheim Servite Quartet came to Arizona and we ranked the impact for these guys going into it, Jacob Manu was number 4. And we always assumed that he was going to get playing time as a junior or an upperclassman, if at all. But here he is as a true freshman, and he's the defensive MVP for the Wildcats. Good story.
It is a good story. It's an interesting pick. I'm torn between a couple guys, the two guys being Hunter Echols and Jackson Turner. Jackson Turner ended up leading the team in tackles, obviously had some huge takeaways, a couple takeaways in that final game. But I'm going to go with Hunter Echols. I feel like he was the most consistent performer across the entire season. He ended up leading the team in sacks, leads the team in tackles for losses, had a couple forced fumbles, couple fumble recoveries. I also think he was a really good leader for this team, a good mentor for the young defensive linemen. So Hunter Echols is my pick for defensive MVP.
Did you see his Instagram post or Twitter post the other day?
The one
where he thanked Jedd Fisch to the best head coach I've ever had.
Yeah. Most perfect. Yeah.
Clay Helton's like, what am I, chopped liver?
Seriously.
Well, I mean, Hunter came here and he got a chance to play. Yeah. And he never really got that opportunity at USC, so you can understand where he's coming from.
Totally. I think that, and it might just be the position he plays, I think people sleep a little bit on Jerry Roberts. He was a guy who probably as recently as a month ago we might have all agreed was Arizona's defensive MVP. But just the emergence of Jacob Manu at the end of the season, I think overshadowed a little bit of the Jerry Roberts stuff. So give me him. He's second on the team in tackles, 1 behind Jackson Turner, 2.5 tackles for loss, PBU, 3 quarterback hurries, which was the most on the team, forced fumble recovery. This is a guy who, again, does not receive a whole lot of attention.
Yeah. But,
is very quietly a pretty solid defensive player.
Well, it's coming off a season-ending leg injury, too.
Absolutely.
And Jedd said that right there, that example of him recovering, staying in Tucson, getting rehab, working back in, that was a pretty good example for the younger guys.
Right. And look, I would put Jacob Manu at the top of my list, too. He's probably second or third. Yeah. But again, it's a small sample size, right? And, it was only really the last third of the season in which we saw him. So.
All right. How about best newcomer? Now, Lev, you're going to be writing about this category, but you're going to be breaking it up. You're going to be doing best transfer and best freshman, which I think is very fair. And it's kind of my answer because I combined two. I have a twofer on this one, and it's a freshman and a transfer. And it's Tetaroa McMillan and Tanner McLaughlin, the tight end. Most receiving yards by tight end for Tanner McLaughlin since Rob Gronkowski in 2008. Tetaroa McMillan, I believe, is tied for first in the Pac-12 with receiving touchdowns at 8. Those two guys making an impact for Arizona. Best newcomers.
He averaged 18 yards a catch. T-Mac. Pretty impressive.
Did Arizona have an 18-yard catch in general last season.
An 18-yard reception. Good.
Yeah.
Stanley Berryhill sitting there being like, what the hell?
Good one, Justin. There's so many guys you could choose from here.
Because
right?
everybody was new.
Jacob Delora is a newcomer. Right. Jacob Cowling's a newcomer. Tetero McMillan, Jonah Sabanaya.
Oh, man.
I mean, he started every game at right guard, which is very unusual for that to happen. If I have to pick one guy, top newcomer, I got to go with Jaden Delora. I mean, it's a little boring since we also picked him for offensive MVP.
Why don't you split it up? Let's do
top
best,
freshman,
yeah.
I'd say T-Mac.
Okay.
Just for his overall body of work, the big plays that he provided, how much he improved over the course of the season. If Manu had started from the beginning and been as impactful as he was over the latter half of the season, I think he could have gotten the nod, but I'll go with T-Mac for top freshman.
What about Dorian Singer?
He's not a newcomer.
He's not a newcomer.
Wait a minute.
He was, I mean...
I'm sorry. I'm confusing my receivers. Jacob Cowling, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah, Jacob
Sorry,
Cowling. Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. What about Jacob Cowling? Jacob Cowling's really good. Now, the same caveat as Lev. I can't say Delora's the MVP of the team and not the best newcomer. But if we're eliminating Delora from the conversation. Jacob Cowling, and I think he tapered off after suffering that injury later in the year. He was a guy who, I think through the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season, was clearly their best player. And somebody who, maybe one of these days we'll look at him as kind of the first in a chain of guys who came here, took a leap of faith to play for Jed Fish, coming off a season in which they won 1 game. If this is it for Jacob Cowling, and we might touch on this later, if this is it, it's a really good 1-year stint as an Arizona Wildcat, one of the top, 10, 15 receiving seasons in Arizona football history.
Yeah, Dennis Northcutt and Bobby Wade are the only players ahead of him for single-season receptions.
He caught 85 balls.
Yeah.
85 balls. And this was being less than 100% the final month of the season.
Yeah.
I thought that was very impressive. And a guy who, again, one of these days we might look at him and go, it all started when that guy decided to come to Arizona.
All right, now let's move along to most improved. And Ryan, I will take your answer that you said just now before saying Jacob Cowling, Dorian Singer.
Yeah, Dorian Singer, fantastic.
Dorian Singer, I believe, leads the conference in receiving yards. Jacob Cowling leads in receptions. Dorian Singer leads in receiving yards. And he's
1,105.
He's been amazing this season for Arizona. And even though that Arizona loses a guy like Jacob Cowling, because I'm assuming he's going to the NFL draft, I would think that Jacob Cowling is a goner. But the way that Jed was talking during his kind of season wrap-up press conference was that Dorian Singer is going to get better. All these guys are going to get better. So the fact that he included him in the mix of guys who are coming back for next season, I think leads me to believe he's going to be an all Pac-12 wide receiver next season. And
he should be one this year.
He definitely, he should be one this year, but a good launching pad for 2023. I definitely think Dorian Singer can earn some NFL draft buzz for 2023.
Yeah, my pick for this is Michael Wiley, and I'll explain his case in a second here. But one thing I want to say about Dorian is, if there was a player on this team who's most likely to be poached or lured away by a giant NIL offer, I would say it might be Dorian Singer. Who you emerge in that fashion. You're still kind of not the headline guy, even if Cowling doesn't come back, because T-Mac is kind of still kind of has that buzz from being such a big time recruit. Dorian might still kind of have that chip on his shoulder. I don't have any information about this. I'm not reporting anything. I'm just saying, if you looked at their roster and were like, which is the player that some team like Texas or USC their NIL collective would work behind the scenes and throw a bunch of money at, Dorian would be the first one to come to mind.
You saying
for me
feeling like Ringo or something like that?
A little bit, yeah. No, that's a great call.
The Beatle who's not getting all the love.
Yeah, no, that's a really good call. I think the way I put it in my story, one of my categories I have is unsung hero, and I said Singer just proved that it's possible to lead a conference in receiving yards and still be underrated.
Yeah.
So Michael Wiley's my choice, though. Michael Wiley went from 302 yards to 771 rushing. His rushing average went from 3.3 to 6.8. He scored 6 touchdowns last season. He scored 11 touchdowns this season. And just when you watched him, like we had more of like a body of work to compare to, like totally different player.
Yeah.
Like more faster, more elusive, harder to tackle. So he gets the nod there for me.
Well, and that's why I was kind of hesitant to call him an all Pac-12 player this year, because I feel like, isn't that media voted, right, Lev?
No, the official all Pac-12 team is the coaches. And then there's also a panel of us who vote for the AP all Pac-12 team.
Okay.
So there'd be 2 of those.
You would think coaches would make Dorian Singer an all Pac-12 guy,
would,
but
there's also all those guys up at Washington who are also like equally awesome. Mm-hmm. There's also Jacob Cowing. I think second team. Yeah, I would say a really good chance. First team, I don't know. Yeah. Even though he does lead the league in receiving yards.
Interesting. My vote for most improved. How about DJ Williams? I'm serious.
That's a really good pick, actually.
I mean, why not?
Sneaky good pick.
So this is his 3rd team.
The closer.
Right. He went from Auburn, 2 years at Auburn, 1 year at Florida State, 1 year at Arizona. Yards per carry in the last 4 years gone from 4.8 to 5.2 to 4.7 to this year 6.3.
Nice.
Scored 3 touchdowns, which is tied for his career high. Averaged 13 yards a catch, which is like more than double his previous career high. He's a guy who I think when they brought him in, Jed Fish obviously talked a good game about him, about how you can never have too many running backs. I think that we all looked at him more as a depth piece than anything. And he ended up having some very important carries. My goodness, especially against ASU at the very end. The ball was in DJ Williams' hands. It wasn't in Michael Wiley's.
Yeah, and there would have been no second dramatic defensive play if he hadn't tripped over Jaden Delores' foot.
That's a good
point. It
point.
looked live like he just tripped over the turf monster, but I watched it a bunch of times, and Delores' foot got him and tripped him up short. He would have had the first down. There wouldn't have been that second defensive dramatic
that was the play where
that we had.
That was when they were in the pistol and they had like an offensive lineman. Who was the
lineman? No, it was the
play
before that.
Oh, play before that.
It was the play before that. Then that
Wendell
last
Moe.
play, they put Wendell Moe in the backfield. They had JT Hand out there as like another offensive lineman. But Peyton Fears got beaten at the point of attack, and that play got blown up.
Should have just handed the ball to Wendell Moe. That would be great. Just have him spiking on the field.
Part 2, yeah.
All right, guys, let's move along. Real quick, before we get into our Twitter mailbag, what do you guys think about the latest coaching hires being made? And what do you think about Deion Sanders just being so open about other schools wanting him?
Look, Deion Sanders is a different cat. That's his appeal. His appeal is that he's not your father's football coach.
Yeah.
Right? He appeals to kids. He appeals to... He's a big name who's never been afraid to speak his mind. It's funny for a guy who is such a brash player. I think he is kind of an old school coach.
Yes.
Kind of a disciplinarian, no hats, no headphones, that kind of stuff. I think that the world's easiest pairing out there is Deion Sanders in Las Vegas.
I could not agree with you more.
Eric Harper, a guy who we all know, who worked on Mike Stoops' staff. I'm sure he's a listener, he says with a smile. Harp, if you're listening, Deion Sanders makes total sense. I mean, could you imagine Deion in Vegas?
I was going to say, why would you take that job when you could get a Pac-12 job? But UNLV could be
the Colorado
UNLV
job.
could be a Pac-12 job.
Yeah.
Like you could
in
get
a couple
Deion
years.
could be the domino that gets UNLV into the Pac-12.
Yeah,
it's a major TV market. It's a place where I think they're hungry for success. You're playing in an NFL stadium. I know. Look, man, I know it's still the Mountain West, but would you rather be the head coach at UNLV or at Colorado?
And
Honest answer.
NIL offers in Vegas compared to Boulder, Colorado.
Where do you think it's easier to recruit 17-year-olds to? Las Vegas, where you can play in Allegiant Stadium, or Boulder, Colorado?
Yeah. Sign me up.
Great
San Diego
question.
State, UNLV.
Yeah, USF is out there too.
USF makes sense. Yep.
Which makes some sense. I saw Cincinnati thrown out there. That's kind of a weird fit for Deion. Colorado feels like a weird fit for Deion, but I don't know. He's an interesting guy, like you said, Ryan. He's got a lot of flash and this certain reputation, but I think his DNA really is that he's a good football mind and a good coach. Mm-hmm. You don't just it's not all flash that enables you to have the success that he's had. You have to know what you're doing.
They went 11-0.
But in the age of the NIL, you can win with flash too, right? I mean, if you have a reputation for being, flashy and attractive to kids, no longer are you recruiting just 17-year-old high school juniors and seniors. You're recruiting every kid who plays on every team in America every year. There's nothing wrong with having a little flash, I don't think.
And recruiting is everything. It's the game, and he's obviously really good at it. People want to play for him. He would make Colorado interesting again, and they really haven't been interesting in a long time.
Well, and I see that he's like, yeah, Colorado's interested in me. And I look at what Arizona State did with Kenny Dillingham. And while it still could be a great hire, 32 years old, going to grind his butt off. You know that Kenny Dillingham is going to put all of his effort into this job. But, man, if you're ASU, you're wondering, man, if Deion Sanders is like, yeah, Colorado's interested, what would have ASU been like?
How about this?
In Phoenix, Scottsdale.
Let's look at Stanford. Stanford's a program where you're not allowed basically to use the transfer portal because it's so hard to get in there, right? Stanford, David Shaw had announced his resignation 6 hours earlier. And the names that have been thrown out there already are Bronco Mendenhall and Chris Peterson. Two guys who I think if ASU had hired either one of those guys, it would be not only a home run, but a grand slam.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, did ASU sell itself short in trying to get somebody who was the polar opposite of Herm Edwards?
We'll see. I don't think Chris Peterson would even entertain any job out there besides Stanford.
Right.
Like, he doesn't want to get involved in all that stuff, the portal and NIL. And also, I don't know if you can compete if you don't. Stanford, they might try. Right. And it might take a really unique guy, and Chris Peterson is a really unique guy. My guess is that he's not going to come out of retirement and come back. I think he was just sort of disenchanted with the way college football is going overall. But yeah, they are really going all in at ASU on this idea of kind of like the Phoenix people. I'm Charlie Ragle, Vince Amy,
possibly Jason Mons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, guys who've coached in the Phoenix area in high school. Vince Amy played for ASU. Kenny Dillingham is an ASU guy through and through. So we'll see.
It makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. I just don't know if it's a good strategy.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're definitely going to go after the Phoenix area kids harder than the previous regime did. And I think the previous regime kind of just ignored them entirely and, focused its efforts primarily on California. So it'll be some, good recruiting battles between the in-state schools with that staff.
Well, I think it's good that Jed has really established a good connection with a program like Hamilton, who's got already Russell Deuce Davis, Grayson Stovall from their team, and they have 2 commits for 2023. To get in with a school like that, I think is going to be important, especially with the school up the road now, trying to get some guys away from Phoenix, or keep them in Phoenix, I should say. All right, guys, let's move over to the Pac-12 mailbag for the week. Arizona football, we also have some other questions in regards to the Pac-12 championship game.
But that's a good that'll let's save those for the end because that'll be a good segue into
absolutely.
our Pac-12 pick'ems wrap up for the season.
All right,
where's my trophy? By the way, did you guys bring my trophy?
I give you a fist bump, maybe.
High five, a pat on the back. Our first question comes from Brad Malone. Brad asked, 3 years from now, what program will be in better shape, Arizona or the Scum Devils, meaning ASU? I would probably say Arizona.
Yeah, they have a 2-year head start.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I think that Kenny Dillingham is such an unknown that it's hard to say at this point how that's going to go. We've seen, coaching hires in recent years that looked perfect on paper, like Scott Frost to Nebraska. Like, what could be better? Like, star quarterback there, had great success at UCF, and totally belly flopped. Jed Fish, we now have at least a little bit of proof that he can coach, right? We see the direction that this program is headed. So I'll also say Arizona.
All right, John Vader asks, how do NIL offers lure players into the transfer portal? How does that work? Are they like scholarship offers where they can essentially be revoked or modified if a player doesn't pan out? produce as expected, or are they contractual in nature so that NIL money offered is guaranteed?
Michael?
I don't really know what the concrete answer to this is. It's like still a lot of rumor and innuendo. Like when Jordan Addison went from Pitt to USC, there were all these rumors. Oh my, he got like a 7-figure deal or whatever. And I don't know if that's true.
I think that was Cincinnati putting those out there to make it seem like, or Pittsburgh, making it seem like USC was essentially paying him to come out to LA.
And that stuff might be happening. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know that the idea of NIL was never this. It was never to entice transfers or recruits or anything of that nature. It's supposed to be to just provide opportunities for players at where they're at to make a little extra money.
To sell autographs or to have appear on a billboard.
Yeah, so Jaden DeLora and Tetero McMillan, they just got cars from Jim Click through Arizona's NIL collective, the Friends of Wilbur and Wilma, and it said, the post said that in exchange, or part of the deal is that they also will volunteer time at the Boys and Girls Clubs, and I think that's
cool.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that used to get programs in trouble, giving cars to players, but that's more in the spirit of what it is than trying to like get guys to transfer for money, essentially.
How's Wilbur feeling, by the way, after Friday?
Yeah, in the concussion protocol, possibly.
Sparky laid the hands on him. All right. TR Burns, 826, his question. We know the team needs beef on defense, and this is a bowl team with the defense giving up one less score a game. Do you see Fish going to the portal for an Eccles type of guy to plug the holes at DE, linebacker, and DB to give the underclassmen another year to make weight?
Yes. I mean, yes.
Safeties.
Didn't he say that on Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Safeties. You need a middle linebacker because Jerry Roberts is no longer there. You have a good piece at the other linebacker position in Jacob Manu, but you need experience there. And, the guys that they have there, Malik Reed, Anthony Solomon, obviously did not pan out this year. You have some converted safeties who didn't really do anything this year. So, yeah, they need to go in the portal, get a linebacker, and also get some veteran pass rushers with Jalen Harris and Hunter Eccles leaving.
Yeah, front 7, front 6, whatever the number is on defense. I think that'll be a huge focal point. Middle linebacker, you mentioned it, Justin. I mean, they have some young defensive tackles in the pipeline already who've shown promise. We don't know if Keon Bars is going to come back or not. I think that Deion Wilson and Paris Shand are possible portal candidates. And if you look at the recruiting class, they're bringing in a lot of those like nickelback safety type guys. So I don't know how much they're going to go looking for veterans in those spots. I think it's going to be more focused on defensive line and linebacker.
All right. The dude, 1121, has a 2-part question. Do you think Coach Fish has any silent commits for 2023? And then number 2, Weiling, Cowing, Turner, and CRW back next season. Going back to question 1, I think it's safe to say that Arizona's going to land another Hamilton kid. Trey Spivey, wide receiver, big kid, the son of former Diamondback Junior Spivey. I think it's safe to say that he's going to commit to Arizona here very soon. That's the only silent commit that I really know about. Lev, you may have another answer. And then as far as the other guys, Weiling, Cowing, Turner, and CRW back next season, man, Michael Wiley, that's a kind of a wild card because he really got enough tape, I think, to get some NFL draft buzz and turn pro. And, as a running back, you want to save the tread on the tire. And Michael Wiley showed that he can also get it done in the passing game, too. And you need to be versatile in the NFL. So, Michael Wiley, I don't know. That one's up in the air. I think Jacob Cowing's gone. I think Jackson Turner might end up coming back, and same with CRW. What about you, Lev?
Yeah, I'm going to say all 4 are going to leave.
Yeah?
Why wouldn't you take the plunge at this point? Jackson Turner's had some injury issues here. He had his best season. Christian Roland Wallace, I don't know how much more he has to prove. A little bit of a different guy, so he might come back. Wiley's an interesting one. Doesn't have the giant numbers, but his game is very well suited for for the NFL. I was just thinking about this the other day. Justin, remember when J.J. Taylor a couple years ago just dropped it on us that he was like, oh, yeah, this is my last game.
Yeah.
Just totally out of the blue. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm a senior. Academically, he was a senior, and then he just left. Mm-hmm. He didn't get picked. It's hard for running backs to get picked. But if I had to bet, I would bet that all 4 of those guys would go. Is
Wiley big enough, do we think? I know J.J. Taylor's not prototypical either, but J.J. Taylor's sort of the exception.
I don't like Wiley's not your between the tackles runner, but like how often does that even come up in the NFL these days? Like how are running backs utilized? Hardly any team uses only one back. Mm-hmm. They throw to the running backs a ton. Mm-hmm. You know, like if this was 1982, I'd say no. Michael Wiley probably would have been a wide receiver in 1982, honestly. Yeah. So I just think his skill set is what would be appealing to a team, and it's really hard at running back to make it. There's more. I always say there's more supply than there is demand.
Right, and conversely, I think Christian Roland Wallace is prototypical in every definition of the term. Maybe somebody whose college stats don't pop out at you, but he's somebody who's exactly the kind of long, athletic guy NFL teams look for at defensive back.
Yeah, with him, it's going to be what's your 40 time.
Yep.
You know, and then if it's not what they want it to be, he might become a safety. Mm-hmm. You know, or maybe a slot
he's got
defender.
A big enough frame.
He sure does. Yeah. He was cut the moment he showed up here. Like, and he was like ready to play, and you don't see that often.
Guys, can they do the pro day and then come back?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what there is a mechanism to quote unquote test the waters. I'm not completely sure how that works. Honestly, it hasn't come up that often in recent years, so I haven't. But I'll look into it further now that they have a bunch of guys who are kind of in that category.
I feel like a lot of these guys, they can go into the pro day and be like, okay, if I have a good pro day, I'll stay. Mm-hmm. But if I don't, and my stock kind of falls a little bit, maybe I come back.
I'm sure a lot of it has to do too with whether you officially hire an agent, or not. Like agents can represent you in NIL deals now, so it's kind of complicated. But I think most guys they're going to have their minds made up by mid-January, one way or the other.
All right, UA Catmandu asked, any rumblings on young players who contribute or will be counted on next year? Redshirt freshmen planning to transfer out.
To the rumor that they'll leave?
Yes.
Oof. That's a weird one. I mean, I would say anyone who got substantial playing time this year, like who's a young player, like why would you go somewhere else? Like the opportunities in front of you if you're Isaiah Taylor or Deuce Davis or Jacob Kangaika, Tai Youngalale. Mm-hmm. I mean, those guys aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know? Now, hey, let's flash forward a year. Let's say Jaden DeLora has another really good year and then says he's coming back again. And you might be looking at that quarterback room, right, at that point. Kean Burnett, how patient is he going to be? I think Tanner McLaughlin has, one more year?
Yeah.
Kean will play more. He'll be the second tight end. That's a guy, maybe, if, he's not catching a bunch of balls or being featured in the passing game. But again, that's a year from now.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody who's in that category at this point in time pursuing the portal.
When it kind of goes along the lines of our next question, AZ Cats Go, do you see a chance that T-Max, Singer, or Big Jonah get poached this offseason? And we talked about it a little bit with Singer.
Yeah, I mentioned Singer. I don't think the others. No, I don't think so at all. Especially since T-Mac just got a car here in Tucson. That's why Savanaya. I mean, he's in a perfect spot. He could play tackle next year. He's going to be kind of the star of the offensive line. Singer's the one to me where he's got the numbers. He's obviously better than everyone thought he was going to be. How does he see himself? Does he want to be like the star of the show? Is he like grateful to Arizona for giving him the opportunity? Just one to keep an eye on.
All right, next one. After Coach Fish's comments about first and goal, please give perspective on the overall play calling for the season. How did the players experience influence? I don't know. I'm not sure what they meant by that. What changed or didn't as the season progressed? Should he continue to be calling the plays or delegate? Jedd Fisch, as long as Jedd Fisch is the head coach of the Arizona Wildcats, he's the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, this is the NFL model. I mean, the NFL model is your head coach is your play caller, right? I mean, almost everybody, right? If your head coach is an offensive-minded dude, he calls the plays. I don't think that's going to change. As for play calling, look, I think it's really easy to second-guess play calling. It's also when you don't have necessarily the players or when you're building, you don't have the options that USC has when they get inside the 5. My guess is that people's perception of Jedd Fisch's play calling will improve the more good players they get. The same way there were people last year questioning why they did what they did a lot. Then Arizona got a bunch of good skill position players in there, and there were less questions about that.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say as sort of a complaint is he could have run the ball a little more in the red zone especially, and I think he acknowledged that by calling that one decision, the worst play call in the history of the Territorial Cup. I think he was obviously being hyperbolic to make a point there, but they were running the ball so well, and then you get down to 1st and goal at the 5, and he decides to do a fake bubble slant pass that got tipped and picked off in the end zone. He wants to pass the ball. He's an NFL guy. He coaches the quarterbacks and wide receivers coach. A lot. Yeah. And so he's going to want to featureize that. But I think that shift maybe half a dozen plays per game to the other side of the ledger, and you have a little bit better balance, and maybe some of your play action plays would be a little bit more effective.
All right, our next question comes from Bob Bathy, and he asked, was the recruiting standard set last year, or was it a one-off? Does Jedd expect this new class to be rated higher than last year's? I'm not sure that Jedd is expecting this class to be rated higher than last, because they got Tetero McMillan. Mm-hmm. They got Kean Burnett. They got some of the highest rated recruits that Arizona has ever gotten. So I'm not banking on Arizona to have a higher rated class than last year's. But I still think it's going to be a good one. It's going to be an important one because it has a lot of defensive players that could get a lot of playing time for next season. But when I talked to Jedd at the start of the season, he said, and I quote, "We're looking to double down on recruiting classes." But again, defensive heavy class. I'm curious to see what they can do next season.
So, okay, according to 247 Sports, they're currently ranked 43rd in the nation in terms of their 23 recruiting class, which I say most people
good.
Would probably, I don't know, it's pretty good, but based on the fact that you were just 25th, people would say that that's disappointing. But I have a theory about this.
It's a lot of defensive players.
I have a theory about this. Yes, it's a lot of defensive players. Who are the easiest players for talent evaluators to judge? Quarterbacks, running backs,
receivers,
wide receivers.
People with counting stats.
Yeah, this class has one wide receiver and one running back and one quarterback and a lot of linemen and defensive backs and athletes. So I think that, they might not be judging this class as accurately as they would if it had more skill position players in it.
Right. And again, you can only sell opportunity so many times, right? Last year, one of the reasons why Arizona recruited so well was they were able to sell opportunity on offense. Well, that opportunity on offense isn't necessarily there anymore, is it?
No.
You're not going to come in and play right away as a running back, quarterback, or wide receiver, or tight end, or left tackle, or left guard, right?
Well, left tackle and right tackle.
Right, exactly. This year, right.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to come in right now as a freshman and start on this offense. You might be able to on defense, right? And so I think that this year they're selling opportunity on defense, where maybe last year they were trying to sell opportunity on both sides of the ball.
All right, Toby OJ asks, does getting rid of divisions hurt our chances at making the title game with SC and UCLA leaving? It seems that competition would be less fierce in the South if it was still a thing.
So he's saying that there would be less competition in the South if 2/6 of the teams weren't there?
Yeah, I guess.
No,
I don't know. How would you even do it? How would you even do the divisions if it was just 10? I guess San Diego State and UNLV came in, they'd be in the South.
They'd be in the South. But
so, sign me up for the South if that's the case.
Exactly what he is saying, which is, you can't expect that there would be divisions again in 2 years if the best program, so to speak, in the South would be Utah. Number 2 would be ASU. Right? Sort of based on history. Mm-hmm. Washington and Oregon and Stanford and Cal would have a real problem with that, probably.
I mean, look, if you stack, it's harder to climb up through a ladder of 12 teams, right? Versus a ladder of 6 teams. That's just math. I think that not having divisions in general does not favor the middle class. It definitely favors the upper class, and I would not put Arizona in the upper class, right? They belong more in the middle class. So I kind of thought divisions were cool. I'm like one of the few people who was kind of opposed to the abolition of divisions. And if we did have divisions, the Pac-12 championship game would be USC against Washington, which is kind of a more appealing matchup on some level than Ryan's giving me
I'll take the rematch of the overtime game.
Yeah, it wasn't overtime, but it was an amazing game. Yeah, and we'll get to that in a second.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Next one, Justin.
Winston Dan, any unsung heroes on the team that doesn't get accolades? Scout team, tutoring other players, community work. Well, I mean, Jacob Manu emerged on the scene because of the impact he made on the scout team, to the point where they had to tell him, "Hey, man, chill out. It's just practice. Like you're a scout team player. Just hang out." So Jacob Manu obviously put in work on the scout team this year. But as far as academics go, I mean, Jed Fish said that this has been a great semester in terms of grades for the football program. And I think probably the smartest guy on the team is punter Kyle Ostendorp, who's going to be a future NASA employee. And so he's got a great GPA, does an amazing job in the classroom. So yeah, shout out to Kyle Ostendorf for always putting it down in the classroom.
Yeah, I mentioned Dorian Singer earlier. I think he's still kind of underrated. But if you want to go really off the grid a little bit here, how about DJ Warnell? Highest graded special teams player. We're not counting Tia Savea, who has a higher grade because of that blocked field goal. Not enough snaps for him on teams, but most special teams tackles. Guy who could have kind of been, upset that he didn't get more playing time on defense this year. Did not let that affect his effort on special teams. So I'm gonna give DJ a nod.
What about you, Ryan?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know the behind the scenes stuff the way you guys do. I mean, you guys are at practice, you guys watch, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with the punter who may be or not an astronaut, but maybe might be an astronaut.
The first punter in space. It's not Pat McAfee.
No,
it's
exactly.
Kyle Ostendorf.
It's Kyle Ostendorf.
So you know how like when they would land on the moon and hit a golf ball, maybe Kyle will be the first one to punt a football from Mars or something.
I think it just keeps going.
All right, let's see here. DC Lion 29. How should Arizona manage Braden Dorman, Noah Fafita, and Jaden DeLora being all in the same QB room, especially when they all have the potential to start somewhere else? Very good question. And Jed kind of made it firm on his press conference on Monday that Jaden DeLora has done everything he could do to show that he's QB1. Noah Fafita is the backup, and I quote, clear cut. Okay. Everything else is kind of up for anyone who wants to take that position. So I think Braden Dorman is going to kind of understand where he's at on the totem pole when he first comes in. You're QB3. We'll see where we're at going into next season.
Michael Lev, you covered USC. Pete Carroll built his entire program on what concept?
Competition.
Whose son is the offensive coordinator? Pete Carroll's
son.
Okay. Yeah. The name of the game here is competition. This is the way football teams have done it since the beginning of time. I think that the thing that Jed Fish appears to be pretty good at is setting expectations. I don't think he has told Braden Dorman that he can come in and play right away. I don't think he told Noah Fafita a year ago that he can come in and play right away. I think he tells these guys, show up and compete and may the best man win. And that's how they're going to deal with it. I think that this is a common problem in college football, and you just, may the best man win.
Yeah, I agree. The message to Braden Dorman, the message to Noah Fafita is come in, kick ass, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Keep being the best version of you, keep stacking good days of practice. Hey, you're one snap away. Mm-hmm. You're one snap away from getting in there.
By the way, and I think Noah Fafita played great in his limited opportunities this year. Maybe next year, there's a way to kind of split it here a little bit. Maybe next year you give Noah Fafita one drive a game. Maybe next year you build a package for him. There are ways to play the best guy, even if two of them play the same position.
All right, last one before we go into Pac-12 championship. Gopher the W. That's the handle. Fascinating handle.
Like Gopher, Gopher?
Maybe.
Anyway,
who's that?
Minnesota?
Oh,
Gophers.
okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
Sorry. Not as Big Ten as you guys. All right, this one says, dare I say it, 2024 Pac-10 champs. So I like the shade there at USC and UCLA. Thoughts on it? With 60 freshmen, UCLA, USC gone, and Jaden Delora heading into his senior year, I would have to think that's what Jed is hoping to do. If Jaden Delora is the quarterback of the Arizona Wildcats in 2024, I would actually be kind of surprised. With that being said, Pac-10 champs, Pac-12 champs, whatever the conference is at, you got T-Mac as a third-year player is going to be turning pro at that point. Who knows what Arizona's defense will be looking like then? Sky's the limit for Arizona. Who knows? I mean, if they can go from 1-11 to 5-7, I can only imagine where they can go from 5-7 to 2024.
Certainly going to be a lot easier to compete in the Pac-12 without USC and UCLA. Even if you replace them with San Diego State and UNLV, I think Arizona would be in a better position than both of those schools to come in and compete right away for a championship or for a spot in the title game. But man, who knows? I think, look, let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? This is Jed Fish talks about this being a build. Like, if they win 7 games next year, we can talk about them winning 10 games in 2024. But I think that sort of the larger issue is to make sure you continue to develop and not let this be a one-off thing.
I like what our tweeter is thinking here, because all the freshmen who showed so much promise this year are going to be juniors in 2024, right? So that's kind of when you're peaking as a player, especially if you've played early, as a lot of these guys have. The quarterback situation, who knows? I mean, it's so hard to predict the future in regard to that. I agree with you, Justin. I mean, you could definitely see Jaden Delora, pursuing the NFL if he has a really good year next year. But they have guys, right? It could be, hey, Noah Fafita and Braden Dorman, you're duking it out for the starting job for the 24 Wildcats. And I think that's a great point you made, Ryan, that no USC and no UCLA at that point. That makes the path easier to get to the top of the league.
Still not easy, but easier.
Easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Pac-12 champs, let's move ahead to our last Pac-12 pick'em for the season, the conference title game, USC versus Utah at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Number 11 versus number where's USC at now? Are they number 4?
Number 4.
Is that in the college football playoff rankings
Yep.
too?
As
Okay,
of last night. Yeah.
love it. So USC number 4 now, Utah number 11. Trojans are 3-point favorites in this game. The last time these two teams played each other, we had a 43-42 thriller in Salt Lake City. This game is in closed doors. It's not in Salt Lake. It's in Las Vegas. So I expect there to be a lot of Utah and USC fans there. This is as neutral site as it gets for both teams.
Drivable for both fan bases.
I love it.
Sure.
I love this matchup, and I think Caleb Williams is playing his best ball right now. The performances against the rivals, I think pretty much put a stamp on him winning the Heisman Trophy. We shall see, but I think he's got one more performance left in him, and I don't think USC is going to overlook, because they know if they lose this game, they're out of the CFP picture. So give me the Trojans to play inspired and come out and redeem themselves. I got the Trojans to win, and I got USC winning. Let's go 31-21.
Yeah, USC has a great opportunity here, and they know it. If they win, they're in. It's a revenge game, quote unquote, for them. Their only blemish they have on their record, a 1-point loss at Rice-Eccles Stadium, which is nothing to be ashamed of. I just think they're in a better place right now than Utah. Utah's banged up in a lot of ways. I mean, I think Dalton Kincaid's going to play, but he's probably not 100%. I don't think Cam Rising has been quite right since that USC game. He got hurt in that game. He's been playing with a knee brace. Tavian Thomas is he's out of there. He's got a toe injury, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to prep for the draft now. So I don't think they're quite at full strength. And they also don't have their home field advantage, which is a huge, huge factor. I mean, look at their record at home versus their record not at Rice Eccles. I mean, it's a big difference. So I'm also going to take USC to win and take advantage of this opportunity. I've got them 38-31.
Utah has the most experience, and I think that when you get into big games like conference championship games, that really matters. This is a team that was there a year ago, were they not?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Were they there the year before?
They boot stomped Oregon.
Yeah. Were they there the year before?
They've done this a few times.
They've done this a few times. Thank you. To me, man, the fact that they're even underdogs is a little surprising to me. I think it's a pick 'em kind of game. Yes, USC's fantastic on offense. Caleb Williams might be the best player in the country. But Utah has that valuable experience and having been there before. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's a coin toss kind of game. But in the interest of being different, give me the Utes 31-30.
Yeah, Utah is 6-0 at home, 3-3 on the road. So different team away from Rice Eccles. Now, I will say this. Lots at stake in Vegas, right? I mean, the Pac-12 will get a representative in the playoff if USC wins. There's nothing at stake with our Pac-12 pick'ems at all.
I'll say there's always lots at stake in Vegas.
Yeah, our season standings have been decided.
Which is why I'm so free and easy picking upsets.
I know. Ryan's got nothing to do. Ryan wrapped it up last week. Ryan, what's what was your record last week and then for the season?
Sure. I was what was I? I was 3-4, 3-4, something like that last week overall and against the spread. Part of that is because I was an idiot taking a couple of upsets that did not pan out, like Notre Dame beating USC, for instance. Right now, as it stands, heading into the Pac-12 championship game, I'm 49-23 overall, 40-32 picking against the spread.
Yeah, I had an unbelievably good week last week, finishing with a flourish. Of course, again, Ryan had already clinched the against the spread title at that point, so
I was starting a middle reliever on the mound.
Yeah, exactly.
I was pinch hitting for guys. Yeah.
Yeah, the fans are like, why couldn't Lev perform when there was something at stake? I went 7-0 straight up and 6-1 against the spread last week, which is pretty absurd. 55-17 straight up for the season, 34-38 against the spread, and Justin is sitting over there shaking his head.
Yeah, because if I'm just picking money line here, I'm winning a lot of money this year. I went 56-16 straight up, but against the spread, awful 32-40. So in those tight ball games, it really screwed me this year, and I went from numero uno all the way down to last place. How the mighty have fallen.
I think the strategy here, at least early in the year, was take the favorites. I thought that chalk kind of held. Especially the first 8-10 weeks of the season.
Especially home chalk.
Yeah. You started to see that, I think, topple a little bit towards the end with the Arizona beating UCLA and Pasadena. A couple of other, Oregon State beating Oregon this last weekend. It was a good year if you were a favorite, I think, in the Pac-12.
And now for a lot of teams, it's officially bowl season.
Yes.
What's a bowl game you're excited to watch this year?
By the way,
Ryan Finley's like all of them.
But by the way, before I get the angry emails,
the Bad Boy Mowers Bowl.
Before I get angry emails, I know that the Las Vegas Bowl doesn't, or that the New Mexico Bowl does not include the Pac-12 anymore. I know it's the Mountain West versus the MAC or the Sun Belt. I know that. I'm excited to see the Arizona Bowl. How about that? This is a game that we haven't played in 2 years. Looking at the potential teams that are out there, some real talent could come through here. December 30th, noon, should be a Chamber of Commerce kind of day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, and that will do it for this episode of the Wildcast podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Wildcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Download the Wildcaster app for free off the App Store and Google Play. Check out all the coverage on the Arizona Wildcats on Tucson.com. Thanks for listening.